Hello and welcome to the NVR Podcast, Season 2, Episode 11. My name is Rachael Aylmer.
And my name is Tony Meehan.
And today we're going to be talking about NVR in schools again. Welcome back, Tony. Lovely to see you.
And you, Rachael, how are you?
I'm good. Just to recap, your presentation in the NVR Association conference a few Saturdays ago was compelling and well received and animated and interesting and everything else. Did you enjoy it?
I did, yeah. Once the adrenaline started flowing, I was nervous, but, once the adrenaline got going, that was it. I was away, because, obviously this is a subject dear to my heart. Having spent 30 years in teaching, or nearly 30 years in teaching, and just really trying to explore alternatives to what's going on in schools now, in some schools at the moment.
The person I was sitting next to was, just on the edge of her seat listening, and she said, I looked at her and smiled after you said so. She said, I could listen to him all day. I could listen to him all day. So you're back. I've invited you to come back.
Yeah.
We've got an interesting topic today. We're going to be kind of really deconstructing presence in both the setting at home and the setting in a school environment. And I was going to start off with explaining a case I'm working with.
Yep.
And perhaps we can just lead that conversation back to schools environments.
Yeah.
So yes, it comes about really inviting parents to take a different position, particularly when their young person is starting their revision for their GCSEs.
Yeah.
Hope that parents hold on to, and the position that they take of wanting their kids to do so well was really at the forefront of this family's mind that I'm working with right now, and their 16-year-old young person. And their position at the start of our work was, he's got to revise, he's got to get his GCSEs. If he doesn't get those GCSEs and those grades, he's not going to get into sixth form. If he doesn't get into sixth form, that's where all his friends are going. That drive was so intense for the parents, and it come from a real place of love and wanting him to do well. So when we unpick and explore the position of this young person, 16, who manages to scale through most of his revision and mocks with very little revision, but doing very well, and getting some grades. And what the parents we've been working with is the parents just taking a completely different position. And at the start of introducing this position to the parents, they were quite uneasy, feeling how by stepping back is going to get him to achieve these results, this revision. And what's happened is they've changed their position, and by doing so, this young person has independently created a routine in his evenings of going to bed on time. He is removing himself off his games voluntarily.
Brilliant.
Laying his clothes out for the next day. Mm-hmm. He's investing in an alarm system that gets him up independently. Yeah. He's getting himself to school independently, and he's attending his classes of revision. This was at his mock, so he was attending all of his mocks. Yeah. He's subsequently since then starting to attend some revision lessons, and this week he this last week and the week coming up, he's sitting his exams. When I explored with the family a couple of days ago, was this what they thought would happen? Their young person taking control of his life, practicing self-control. Yeah. It was from their wildest dreams. Could they imagine that he could achieve these things? This young person's also got a diagnosis of ADHD. Yeah. So there are certain complexities to how he receives the world and his place in the world.
Yep.
How he struggles to concentrate and remember things. So this lad's got this huge amount of stuff that he's got to remember. He's got to present. He's got to get to school. He's got to do the uniform. He's got to take that book. He's got to get up. He's got to get to bed. He's got to get good night's sleep. He's got to have breakfast. And the parents are remaining present, but in a different way. So this mindful presence we talk about in our practice is, holding the rope, being the parent you want to be, providing the things that you can provide and support him in. Has he got a desk? Has he got space? Has he got time? Has he got food? Has he got the pen? Has he got any revision resources that you need to supply him with?
Yeah.
Are you doing the things that you can do? And how, by exploring other unhelpful communication that has now ceased. So there is no verbal reminders. There is no contention or tensions in the family structure. The home is calmer.
Yeah.
And this lad is what we would describe as stepping into his role of understanding his position, knowing that these are his exams. And if he fails them, he won't get into sixth form. And the parents have stated this once only.
Once only, yeah.
And they've taken this step, this different position. And the parents have shared with me in session, they've struggled. They've wanted to go back in, they've wanted to remind. There was a couple of late attendances and the mother holding her position, father holding the mother's position, both of them working really together as a unit. So I wanted to kind of share that with you, but also how the parents have marveled at the success of their son and his ability, of which they completely felt he had no control over, to achieve this attendance, to achieve this revision, to achieve these setting exams. And now if we transfer some of those principles, Tony, into the school environment, as a non-believer, how do we encourage the teachers to take this stance?
I think there's two things I wrote down as you were talking there, and is agency. The young person developed his own agency and had the space to do that. And I think one of the things I'm learning as a practitioner working with parents is just how much parents do the worrying on behalf of their children.
Yeah.
And this is overwhelming for the child because there is a huge controlling aspect around that, because they set everything up and they can't understand why they simply won't do what we've asked me. Look, and we've done this and we've done this and we've done this. And what you said, I was smiling because it just reminds me of like my position in the pupil referral unit. And again, I have to say, that was a very privileged place to be because of the nature of the young people I was working with, but also because nobody was looking over our shoulder to see how well our pupils were doing in terms of GCSEs and other exams. So we had the luxury, if you like, of not fitting into a league table somewhere. And so that allowed a sense of a teacher agency. And that allowed us to get on with doing what we were good at as teachers and being relaxed about it because we were teachers and we knew our jobs. And I remember we had Ofsted coming and we needed to find some data to demonstrate that we were doing our job somehow. And I stumbled upon a piece of data on the DFE website that demonstrated that we were actually the highest achieving pupil referral unit in inner London at the time. And this is going years back. But I've got that data somewhere. Second highest in Greater London and something like 10th in the whole country. Now, we were a small pupil referral unit. And I thought that was really, really interesting because it showed that we were doing the very best we could within difficult circumstances by allowing staff to feel relaxed about that aspect of their role. Just you can teach, get in there. And, don't worry about the outcome. And what I mean, don't worry about the outcome is you're not there doing everything you can, like those parents were, looking for every aspect that you could control around these young people's lives. And you said you trusted your teachers, as I did, to teach as they did. And the outcomes were, well, unfortunately not brilliant compared to mainstream results. But I would argue the very best we could have done in the circumstances. I always wanted to we celebrated those small clutches of brilliant results that we got from time to time. But we also celebrated those young people for whom sitting an exam was progress. And the outcome, whether it be an F, a G, I know it's numbers now, that was that we knew how to celebrate that, and more importantly, how to build upon it. So I think the other thing, what you said was allowing the teachers. Sorry, I did say this. They were allowed to be the teachers they wanted to be, and I think this is important. So that's a start, Rachel, of where I feel this sort of approach can be moved into a mainstream setting. And it sounds glib almost, where you're saying, don't worry about the outcomes. But it's not that straightforward. You're not saying don't worry about them at all, but you're saying there are more important things. Worry and care about the relationships that you're building, the connections you're making with young people all through the school.
You mentioned teacher agency, and obviously we talk a lot with our clients around parental agency. Can you say more about what does that mean to somebody who perhaps, is curious to explore that a little bit deeper? What does teacher agency mean?
I think it means that you have the freedom to be the professional you are. You spend a long time training to become a teacher. You understand pedagogy. You understand how teaching and learning works. It's an ongoing process. And I think it means then that you have a say in how you teach the fundamentals of how you teach. And rather than it being packaged in such a way that this is how we want you to deliver because of these are the outcomes we expect. So there isn't this sort of sense of dread looming that I've got to achieve these targets. And that then informs what you do in the classroom. And from an NVR perspective, this is really about being in control of yourself. As we say over and over and over again, NVR is about being in control of self. And this is something you have control over. Your development as a teacher, what's out there, what do I need to keep learning so that I become the best teacher I can be. And I used to say to staff all the time, it's never over. You never stop learning. And one of the things I feel that we developed and allowed to happen in the PRU is to broaden one's perspective in the PRU in terms of accepting that there is a wide range of pupils in that classroom with a wide range of needs. And in order to manage those needs in the moment, you had to be extremely well informed and read and learned. And I think, I've had experience recently working with some schools, some that get what NVR is about. It's not about saying, allow all sorts of behavior to happen. Don't worry about it. And you just have to put up with it. But it's actually developing a process whereby you learn more about yourself and how your presence grows. And I said that I don't want to go on about that because we talked a lot about in the last podcast about presence, but it allows you to see the range of needs you have. Classrooms are incredibly complex places. Cannot reduce it to a one size fits all. And what we're saying is with teacher agency, okay, there is a new experience in terms of a new pupil with new set of needs. Right, let's address those. How are you going to manage that within the classroom? And again, presence, how will we support you? And you, as I said, I'm struggling here to because I can represent it visually by opening, if you open your arms and you're being so acceptant of everybody that's in that classroom. But that takes skill and a strong sense of teacher agency.
And that agency has grown. Like if we imagine our individual work, that we work with families. Now, we can make a suggestion to a set of parents about taking a step back and being the parent that you want to be. And my conversations were steered with this particular family we're referring to. Here's the score. Here's the situation. You can have this relationship with your son.
Yeah.
And you can be on his case, and he closes down. He even bought a lock and locked his own bedroom door to keep them out. There was a lot of discourse. There was unsettled. There was no, lack of communication. Didn't want to eat at the family table. Avoidance, isolation in the bedroom. Or you can choose a different position that focuses on the relationship that you've got with him.
Yeah.
Him being happy in his home life.
Great life.
And it might be that he doesn't do that revision that you want him to do.
Yeah.
And it also might mean that in that process, you might fail that exam that he's really able to achieve a pass. Yeah. That might be the outcome. But actually what you have now is you have a more contented young person who's not feeding into his own anxieties, who's beginning to learn that he can do things, he can achieve, that it's set in his own goals, that his parents are supporting him setting his own goals, that he now invites himself to the family table to eat with them, that he does come on that family day out, that he is sitting in the car and communicating and contributing to conversations.
Yeah.
And now this is the son they are around. But he might not be doing that revision that he's being set. He might not achieve that result in the exam. And how that invitation to parents can be, and that development in their own parental agency. Now let's imagine the teacher. So there are 32 of those boys or girls in their class.
Yeah.
32 of them.
Yeah.
And one you.
Yeah.
And now I've got a team of teaching staff that are witnessing me taking a different position.
Yeah.
And I run the risk of being criticised by my, if this NVR approach isn't followed through from top down.
Yeah.
I could be risking myself to be outed by my colleagues.
Yeah.
Not feel supported by my colleagues because of this new position that I'm taking, even though I know instinctively it's the right position to take, to be a supportive teacher, to help where it's needed. Not all help is helpful. Yeah. Just wondering what your thoughts are about that.
School culture is what springs to mind here. How present is the school? How present is the leadership team? How present is the head teacher? At what level can this be introduced, an NVR style approach? And I think it's a really important, one of the things we were talking earlier about how we would address this, changing the culture of a school is about persistence and resistance. And I think it's also about being strategic. Where does one start? I would recall a situation a few years ago where I was asked to talk to teachers about NVR, And the setup was, put it this way, unfortunate, because when I arrived and found myself on a stage in a very bare hall talking to 40 to 50, maybe more, very reluctant teachers and talking about NVR.
Rather stick a fork in my eye.
Absolutely. And it was like, I think I may have said this before, but I expected tumbleweed to waft across the hall, because, and the sense of hostility I felt was justified.
Mm.
Who the hell is this guy telling us that what we're doing doesn't work when actually it does work for us? And let's be clear, Rachel, the problem we have got is in introducing an NVR style approach is that for many young people, many schools, this sort of punitive behaviorist approach is effective. But what we also know is there are many and a growing number of young people who are suffering and being spat out of the system as a result of it. Exclusions are rising. SEMH pupils are among the highest number of exclusion, the percentage of exclusions, etc. So it's really about being strategic and about how you introduce this. And one of the things I remember doing in my school prior to being head of PRU was introducing something called Learning to Learn. And it was a program about building learning power. Mm-hmm. And it was a critical thinking approach to learning. And the most successful thing was getting a team of champions, for instance. So just bringing, and there were a lot of young staff really engaged in this, and they wanted to do this, and it was great because they had this team of absolute enthusiasts, and we sort of infiltrated in a very open way NVR, this Learning to Learn program into the school. And I would envisage that would be a way you engage with young people, not young staff, or actually old, young, whatever staff who want something different. But the critical aspect of it is that there has to be buy-in from leadership. They want to try something different, are willing to give it support and protect that aspect of it as it's happening in the early days, when, of course, there will be challenges to it. Mm. So I suppose, for me, one of the things I remember as a head of a PRU, the pressure, I inherited a PRU where there was pressure on staff to do various things. And what we needed was an atmosphere of calm, of lower the anxiety levels, because stress begets stress. Stressed staff creates stressed pupils. Now, some pupils manage that. We know that. But many don't. Mm. You're really looking at something that is almost counterintuitive. Mm. Not focus too heavily on the outcomes. The more we do, the less likely we're going to achieve those outcomes. We are more likely to achieve those outcomes by creating an environment that is supportive. That third aspect of presence, systemic support, but genuine support. I'm wittering on here, Rachel.
No, and that, Tony, is exactly what the parents I'm working with have done. That they have created this support, this external support system for this lad.
Yeah.
And through that, he is setting his own goals. Yeah. And he's achieving. And at the start of the work, the concern was about his non-attendance. Yeah. And with that was some controlling and escalatory behaviours. Mm-hmm. And we've not seen any escalatory behaviours in the last 4 or 5 months. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing a far less amount of controlling behaviours. The parents aren't feeding into his anxieties. Yeah. They're holding that position. They've created this parental agency in the home that is enabling him to feel safe. And through that safety, he's flourishing and thriving.
Yeah.
And as I described, setting his own goals. So it's a mirrored position, isn't it? This is what the parents are doing at home, and this is what the school are doing at school.
And I think one of the things we need to do, Rachel, is get on with the job of creating a compelling alternative.
Yeah.
Not just sit back and think, well, we're never going to manage this, because the political landscape in which we find ourselves at the moment is very much against this type of thinking. Political landscape is dictating that we have to learn and teach in a particular way. And I think we cannot just sit back and think, oh, well, there's not an awful lot we can do. We need to be looking. There are schools out there doing NVR but don't know they're doing NVR. And we need to locate them, find where the spark is within those schools, work with those people who really are looking for something different, and avoid going down what Paul Dix calls punishment road, because once you go down punishment road, inevitably you'll end up in a pupil referral unit. And then inevitably the results, the academic outcomes are poor. So the system needs to be slightly adapted, adjusted, disrupted, I would say is a better word, in order to allow time and space for something like NVR to find its place in our education system and to grow from within. Otherwise, we will sit back, wring our hands, say, oh, well, there's not an awful lot we can do. And I'm reminded of that Kiel video, I think. Isn't there one where in Belgium, a town in Belgium?
I'll try and put the link on the
please. Because it just demonstrates how NVR thinking mindset spread across a whole town and it had an impact.
And the impact for the young people. Here we have young people who are flourishing.
Yeah. And I think that it's really important, again, that we focus on that, but what the NVR approach, agency, teacher agency, so that they feel that it's not a question of being constantly subjected to observations and the feeling that they're failing, but actually trust them. Because I think that is one of the things that is missing in many schools. Trust of staff and trust of pupils. And I genuinely, well, obviously, NVR offers an alternative.
It does. So I guess I think in summary, when we're winding down this very short podcast, but thinking about the different positions that parents and teachers can take in order to support a young person through, the traumas of sitting, mocks and revision on top of, post-pandemic systems and understanding, how young people have had such a gap in their education and how they're overcoming those gaps. But I guess, what would somebody who is listening and enjoy these topics and want to learn more about NVR would be the best way for them to get in touch?
Well, obviously, get in touch with partnership projects and that. But the reading around there is growing. And I think a lot of the Haim Omers books are useful. The one, Courageous Teachers, is very good in terms of, and it's not just the philosophy or the thinking, there's their case studies in there demonstrate how it works and how powerful it can be. And I don't think they can be disputed. We're always going to have extreme cases where, things don't work out to plan, but they can be recovered from within NVR. And NVR allows for what we call them setbacks.
Yeah.
Okay, where are we going to go with this, guys? It's a setback, but that does not mean everything is falling apart.
No.
I think that, and his he's got many books out around NVR, but I think I also mentioned in the last podcast, I think the PEN program, which is a chapter, very useful. I don't know if you want to put that on the website.
Well,
because it then demonstrates it is a model which can be introduced into schools. And it talks about the steering committee. It talks about a number of tools, but de-escalation, all of these things, how to support properly and develop what I would call a less stressful, less anxious-ridden environment, and focus on the relationships. And the relationships are a better indicator of how a young person is going to succeed, or how you're going to, the degree to which they're going to succeed in exams, etc.
I'm watching. Really helpful.
I'm watching the time. I keep thinking, shut up, wrap up, because
we've tried to aim to make them short and sweet. So I guess I'll put some information on the script around the podcast host. People can get in touch with info@partnershipprojects.uk.com, and alternatively email myself or Tony for more information. But yeah, it's been really good. Thank you, Tony.
Good. Always good, Rachel.
It's always good to chat. Always good to chat, especially about education and NVR. So thank you and goodbye.
Take care, Rachel. Bye-bye.